All right, our person of interest today is someone who's been hailed as the chocolate boy and a walking green flag. He made, waves in the OTT world with Mismatched, then Eternally Confused and Eager for Love. His latest foray, both with Ananya Panday, have had him playing even sort of Greer character. And there's this arrogant business sort of Agastya in Call Me Bay, and the cheating half of the influencer couple right at the center of control as well.
Right, both shows have generated a ton of love in the last few months. CTRL, in fact, a lot of people loved because it was the first time you were seeing a dystopian film like that in a long time. So we thought we'd bring on Vihaan onto the show. We'd ask him a little bit more about the magic that goes behind creating the characters. Also, what it's like to be both Netflix and the nation's darling right now. Take a look.
So tell us first, with both CTRL, with Control and with Call Me Babe, both of those sort of massive projects that we've seen come out in the recent past, first tell us a little bit about both of the characters you play. Which parts of that were easy for you because you resonated? Because they're both very different characters. In fact, there is the similarity that they both are semi-villains, or at least in one case, it seems like a villain ends up to not be a villain. What parts of those characters were easy to do because you were resonating with them very easily?
With Call Me Baby, we had a person who had some sort of an ego and would kind of dominate a room and would not necessarily consider other people's opinions of him or other people's emotions over his own. That I thought would be difficult for me to do because I said, I don't know if I operate like that person. But it was so interesting because it was so freeing because I had this part of myself that could be loud and aggressive and could put people down. I just didn't express it. I don't choose to be that way in real life, but everyone has that part of themselves in their life. I think that's what I brought out, and that I thought it would be difficult, but it was actually quite easy to bring out. And I quite enjoyed like disrespecting people sometimes in certain situations. Not, super rudely, but what you see in the show sometimes, And I quite enjoyed the anger that he had sometimes because it came from pain. And it's this masculine thing where if you are hurt, then you lash out and you raise your voice and you say all those things and avoid the important topics.
Right.
So that actually was quite fun and easy for me to do, which I thought would be difficult. For Control, I think what was difficult was just being in this influencer zone without making it seem too corny, because every time you can always be like, hey, I'm an influencer, but also like, what is it really like, between camera on and off, right? And what is it like to find that tone?
Can I ask, our producer Asha in her research found that Ananya and you actually went to school together.
Yes.
What is it like making a film with someone who you've seen in all of those stages?
It's so crazy because you don't you can never predict the future. I don't think if I was 2 years older than Ananya. She was 2 years younger. And I think obviously in school, the classes are so, the hierarchy or whatever is that you don't necessarily talk to people 2 classes above and below, right? So we didn't have that much FaceTime, but we saw each other around in school or whatever. But I don't think in my wildest dreams I would ever have looked at him and been like, hey, we're going to do 2 projects together in life. I don't think that ever occurred to me even remotely. So it's just crazy how life, turns out. I'm really, really happy for her. I think
Do you or her, do either of you have a mental image of the other person even in school? Like, have you talked about that?
Yeah, but honestly, all I remember was that she was just like a really sweet girl, just hanging out and doing her own thing. Like everyone is like, she was just really like kind. I didn't have any opinion of her because I never actually really spoke to her.
You grew up, as we've sort of already told our audiences, in Mumbai around the film world. When you hadn't entered the film world, was there a conception of it that you had that, now that you've entered it, you could almost turn around and tell, like, baby Vihaan, that, like, I was wrong. This one thing is actually really different.
I think I didn't expect how many other things there are with acting that actually influence acting that you should know or that you should work on or that might be important. Like the way you, for example, how you are, because I just dubbed for something today, how you're in the dubbing booth. and how that changes your performance, or how you are when it comes to picking the right scripts, or how you are with, the way your fitness, or whatever it is. I think I tended to only be like, if I can do a scene well, that's it. But there's so many other things and so many other facets to this industry that we are working in.
Your advice to someone who's about 5 years behind you in the industry, who's starting out, who's looking at the list of sort of films and shows you've been a part of, looking at the platforms you work with, because today Netflix is the dream, right? What would your advice be to them?
Have unshakable belief in yourself, uh, and understand there will be ups and downs, and just literally just keep going. Make sure you're putting your 110%. Make sure your craft is impeccable, and know yourself and know who you are, what you bring to the table, and what you're selling from a business standpoint.
Has working on your sense of belief in yourself been, I mean, so many will say it's a lifelong process, right?
100%.
And that's what I want to ask you. Were you, in a sense, born with it? Did everyone in your family go, we support you fully in this very daring endeavor you're going on?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily my mom and dad, they always thought I'll not at some point stop saying I want to be an actor and be a proper business person. But I think to a certain extent they felt that if a child has been saying this for years and he truly loves it, let him take a shot. So at least if he fails, he knows it's not for him, as opposed to living with the doubt that this was always for me and I did something else. So they were surprisingly after a while, zen about it. They were like, okay, as long as you make money, we're okay. And so then they allowed me. My dad, in fact, once said, okay, if you're fine, if you want to go to acting school, make sure you go to the best acting school you can. And make sure you give it your all. If you're going to go, like, give it 100%. Don't just, be half-half. My mom used to take Gita classes, and after a while, she was concerned, but then she realized that it's someone's calling, it's someone's calling. You can't stop them. You can only make it easier for them. So they were okay with that. It has been difficult, I will say. It's not that they had their doubts and didn't have my doubts about acting. There are those moments, but then you just pick yourself up, brush it off, and keep going. I think that's the attitude you need to have.